So yesterday we took a look at a show that, while fun, was not really something that was going to enrich you and make you feel like you had that much emotion. Let's change that up with something that is one of the most emotional animes I've ever seen: Death Parade. So the premise of this show is hands down one of the best ideas I've seen for just about any fictional story. It's shown that when a person dies, before they move on to the true afterlife, they arrive at a bar with another person. They have to play some kind of game where the winner will be reincarnated and the loser's soul will be sent to the void. That's the surface idea. However, the genius of this show is that the last few memories that the soul have had are temporarily obscured from them, including how they died, and they slowly start to remember, so as they play, they start to become more competitive and begin to show their true colours to each other and the bartender who acts as the judge between the two. Meaning that the game was never the deciding factor of who goes where, it's how they behaved and what they did during the game that is the deciding factor. This is a brilliant idea. It feels like something from an old Twilight Zone episode. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it was inspired specifically by the Game of Pool episode, especially since the pilot uses billiards as the game there too. It's such a great idea for taking something so simple as parlor games and showing that through them you can really dive into a person's intentions, wants and lusts, their dark side, and how when put into a corner, people can really become their true self, and it's often ugly, but sometimes it can show that they are good people, and that they want to be good people, even if they might lose everything. It's also genius in terms of what kinds of people are put together in the bar. The first episode, it was two people who didn't know each other at all, but we eventually get a newlywed couple who died on their way to their honeymoon, a mother and her stepson who have a fraught relationship, a detective and the man he's been trying to track down who also killed his family, a singer and an obsessed fan. These are all setups that could lead to some great drama, and each episode takes advantage of almost every single opportunity that they're given, especially with the selective memory loss element of the show, which really helps add more layers to each episode. And what's great is that we're told almost nothing about each person when they arrive, so we're finding out about them as they remember what they couldn't before. It's brilliant. The show also gets into some beautifully macabre concepts, like the objects in the games containing the organs of the players, and that certain things done in the game affect their physical state, or sometimes even their mental state, and that, in turn, affects how the game is played, adding another layer of tension to the games and also allowing there to be a more psychological element to it. Not that there isn't already, it's already very psychological, but it just gives it more of that. Admittedly, as the show goes on, they start getting into some more underlying story about how there's some sort of conspiracy going on in the limbo world, and it's not really that interesting since the show only lasted one season, so it doesn't go anywhere. Not that I object to there being something else going on that leads to a more deeper story. I've read plenty of comics and seen loads of shows that started off as very self-contained with each episode or issue, and then they developed into a more ongoing story, but this just doesn't feel all that intriguing, and to be honest, the self-contained elements are so good that I really don't care about that. Now, one ongoing element that was really good was the story of Chiyuki. From the first episode, it's clear that something is different about her compared to the other arbiters, as the bartenders are called, as she doesn't know much about how the limbo bars work and is constantly questioning what's going on. And as the series progressed, we learn more about her backstory and how she came to be there, which is not only a heartbreaking story, but it also leads to some of the most beautiful scenes I have ever seen in an anime series. Which brings me to the animation. While in terms of motion, it's pretty typical for an anime, the visual style, user perspective, and the overall design work is incredible. The backgrounds are really moody and atmospheric, and they remind me a lot of the style of the Muir Island Castle from Pokemon the first movie, just more gothic and mystical looking. And it sets the mood perfectly for the show, and the character designs are excellent, and the ways in which they get them to convey emotion is stellar. You really do feel their inner feelings even without them having to say it. I will admit that this show can get a little melodramatic at times, and the animation definitely adds to that, but this is anime, it's kind of what you have to expect, and most of the time it didn't bother me. The use of lighting is brilliant as well, especially during the flashbacks, and while they do use slow-mo a lot, it does feel like it's used at the right moments to show off the visual beauty of what they're doing and emphasizing the emotional impact of what's going on in the scene. So yeah, not the most amazing anime animation, but it is really damn good. Also, one minor issue I have is with the theme song. Not that I don't like it, in fact I totally love it, it's one of my favourites, but it completely doesn't match with the tone of the show. Just look. Yeah, one of the darkest, most emotional, and in some cases downright depressing animes of all time, and it's got a theme tune that makes me expect to see Ash and Pikachu pop up at any moment. Though that would actually be a cool idea, if they both arrive at Limbo and they have to play a video game to see who goes to heaven and hell, and you know Pikachu would cheat, the little bastard. I get the feeling that either the studio picked the song that they liked and told the animators, make it work into our intro, or whatever team was in charge of the intro just went for their own thing and went full force with it. Either way, I do love this theme song, but it is a big tone shift and can be a false introduction to the newcomers of this show. I will admit that the ending theme is a lot more thematically fitting, but it's also not that memorable, so maybe they made a right choice with the intro music. I mean, not every anime can pull a JoJo and end every episode with Yes's roundabout. I will also admit that while each person who arrives at Limbo are very good characters and perfectly fleshed out, which is impressive since we only see, for the most part, them for one episode, the reoccurring characters besides Chiyuki are not that interesting. The main one is the bartender Daseem, who, I get why they made him the way he is, but he doesn't seem all that interesting.
I believe that there is a purpose to being alive. And there's a purpose to judgment as well.
I think it would have been better if he said nothing throughout the whole series, and when Chiyuki says things to him, we're left to try and figure out what he's thinking, and Chiyuki could act as his mouthpiece to the people who arrive. It would also work for Chiyuki's character development, where it shows that she's gradually finding it harder and harder to explain the rules to the new souls, and eventually refuses to say them altogether. Granted, her development as it is fine, I just feel like they really missed an opportunity here. There are other arbiters in this world, but they do practically nothing besides fill in for Daseem in a few episodes, and contribute to the other underlining story that goes nowhere. But to be fair, besides Chiyuki, they're clearly not supposed to be the focus. The focus is almost always on the players, where it should be, which is good. Honestly, even though this show does have a few flaws, it is an amazing show, bordering on perfect, and it is a close contender for my favourite anime. I do prefer JoJo more because I feel it's a more overall entertaining series, but in terms of polish and overall result, this show is clearly superior, and it's really a shame that it only lasted one season. I would have loved to have seen more from it. But next time we're going to take a look at some shows that we definitely saw more of than we needed in the mid-2000s, and while not technically anime, they still need to be addressed either way.